Denver Darius sat perfectly still in Dr. Clovis' examination chair, his world nothing but the familiar darkness he'd known for 23 months. All right, Mr. Darius, Dr. Clove said gently. I want to try something different today. There's a new treatment protocol, specialized drops that might stimulate your optic nerves. Your latest scans show some responsiveness we haven't seen before. Denver nodded slightly. 2 years of blindness had taught him not to hope too hard. Hope hurt worse than darkness when it led nowhere. I'm game, Doc, Denver said. Can't get more blind than I already am, right? Cool liquid touched his eyes. Dr. Clove instructed him to keep them closed for 5 minutes while the drops took effect. Denver counted the seconds, a habit from his sighted days when every moment meant money, meant progress, meant building his empire 1 minute at a time. Okay, Dr. Clove finally said. Open your eyes very slowly. If you feel any pain, tell me immediately. Denver did, and his world exploded with light. Not the soft, gentle return he'd imagined in his rare, optimistic moments. This was overwhelming, shapes, colors, brightness that made him gasp and squeeze his eyes shut again. Mr. Darius? Dr. Clove's voice was urgent. What are you experiencing? Light. Denver breathed, his voice shaking. I see light. God, I see. He opened his eyes again, slower this time. The world was blurry, like looking through rain-streaked glass, but it was there. Dr. Clove's face came into focus, a brown-skinned woman with gray-streaked locks and kind eyes. The examination equipment. The walls. His own hands. Denver stared at his hands like he'd never seen them before. In a way, he hadn't. Not for almost 2 years. This is remarkable, Dr. Clove whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. Denver, I need to run more tests, but you're seeing. After 23 months of complete blindness, you're actually seeing. The next hour flew by in a blur of tests and measurements. With each passing minute, Denver's vision sharpened. Edges became clearer, colors more vivid. By the time Dr. Clove finished, Denver could read the eye chart on the wall. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, Dr. Clove said, gripping his shoulders. But Denver, your optic nerves are fully responding. This is a miracle, a genuine miracle. Denver broke down right there, tears streaming down his face. 23 months. 23 months of darkness, of grief, of mourning a life he thought was gone forever. Can I tell my wife? Denver asked, wiping his eyes. She's been waiting. She's been so patient, so loving through all of this. I need to see her face, document. I need to look at my wife again. Dr. Clove smiled warmly. Of course. Go tell Sienna. I'm sure she'll be overjoyed. But wear these sunglasses. Your eyes will be very sensitive to light for a while. Denver practically ran out of that examination room. Dark sunglasses on, his heart soaring higher than it had in 2 years. He was going to see Sienna, his beautiful wife, the woman who'd stood by him through the worst period of his life, the woman who'd held him when he cried, who described the world to him every single day, who'd reorganized their entire life to accommodate his blindness. God, he loved her so much. But the waiting room was empty. Your wife stepped outside to take a phone call, the receptionist told him. She said she'd be in the parking garage. Denver headed for the elevator, barely able to contain his excitement. He wanted to call her, to shout it from the rooftops, but no, this news deserved to be delivered face to face. He wanted to see her smile, wanted to watch her eyes light up with joy. After 23 months of darkness, Denver Darius was about to see his wife's face again. However, what he was about to discover behind those parking garage walls was so completely unexpected, so devastating, that would turn his entire world upside down. If you're new here, welcome to the channel where we bring you the most dramatic, emotional, and powerful Black American stories. Before we go any further, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what's about to happen will leave you absolutely speechless. Trust me, you don't want to miss a single second of this. Now, let me tell you exactly what Denver walked into. The parking garage was dimly lit, easier on Denver's still adjusting eyes. Through the blur that was slowly clearing, he spotted Sienna standing next to their Mercedes, phone pressed to her ear, her back turned to him. Denver started toward her, a smile already forming on his face, his mouth opening to call her name. Then he heard her voice. I know, baby, I know, Sienna said into the phone. her tone intimate and soft. Just a few more months, okay? The new insurance policy cleared last week. 15 million if anything unfortunate happens to him. Denver stopped walking. His smile died. His heart started pounding for a completely different reason now. Oh, Calloway, these doctor appointments are so boring, Sienna continued, completely unaware that her blind husband was standing 30 feet away, seeing her for the first time in almost 2 years. But I have to keep playing the devoted wife. Denver's been trusting you more and more with the business, which is perfect for us. Calloway, Denver's second cousin, the man Denver had put through business school, the man Denver had hired as general manager when blindness made running the company too difficult. Family, blood. Don't be jealous, Cal, Sienna laughed, that beautiful laugh Denver used to love. You know you're the one I really want. Denver's just the meal ticket, baby. He always has been. Why else would I have married him? Denver felt like someone had reached into his chest and ripped his heart out while it was still beating. The birth control pills? Sienna said, of course I'm still taking them. You really think I want to get pregnant by a blind man? Please, when we're in the Cayman Islands with all his money, then we can talk about babies. Our babies, not his. Every word was a knife. Every sentence was a betrayal that cut deeper than the last. Denver stood there, frozen, sunglasses hiding the eyes that could suddenly see everything, including the truth he'd been blind to for God knows how long. I should go, Sienna said, checking her watch. The appointment should be wrapping up soon. Need to go back inside and play concerned wife. See you tonight at the office. Denver has that conference call at 8, so we'll have at least 2 hours. She ended the call, turned to check her makeup in the car window. Denver quickly ducked into a corner before she could spot him. His hands shook, his heart pounded. His vision swam. It felt like he was going blind again, even more like he was about to have a stroke. He could confront her right now, could scream and rage and demand answers. Or he could do something smarter. Denver adjusted his sunglasses, gripped his cane, and walked toward his wife with the careful, measured steps of a man who still couldn't see. Baby, Sienna's voice was pure sunshine and warmth as she spotted him. There you are. How did the appointment go? Denver looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in 23 months. Honey brown skin, those striking green eyes, natural curls framing her face. She was still the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen, and the biggest liar he'd ever known. Same as always, Denver heard himself say, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. No change, see. Still can't see a thing. Oh, honey. Sienna wrapped her arms around him, and Denver had to fight every instinct not to pull away, not to flinch from her touch. I'm so sorry. I know you keep hoping. It's okay, Denver said, even though nothing would ever be okay again. I'm getting used to the darkness. They were both liars now. The only difference was that Denver's lie had a purpose. As Sienna guided him to the car, chattering about dinner plans and weekend ideas, Denver sat in the passenger seat with his sunglasses on and his eyes wide open behind those dark lenses. Seeing, he could see Sienna's hands on the steering wheel, hands that had held him through his darkest moments while planning to take everything from him. Could see her profile, that face he'd fallen in love with 3 years ago at a charity gala. She looked exactly the same, but Denver was seeing her clearly for the first time ever. To understand how Denver Darius ended up here, married to a woman plotting his destruction, you need to know who he was before the accident that stole his sight and, apparently, his common sense when it came to love. Denver Darius wasn't just successful. At 34 years old, the man was a walking success story that made other people believe in the American dream. He'd started Darius Luxury Transportation with one beat-up Lincoln Town car and a hunger that poverty had carved deep into his bones. Growing up in South Shore on Chicago's South Side, Denver had watched his mother work 3 jobs just to keep the lights on after his father died. He'd worn secondhand clothes, eaten government cheese, known what it felt like to be invisible in a world that didn't care about poor black kids from the hood. So when Denver got that town car at 24, bought it cash after saving every dollar from his construction job, he'd made himself a promise. He was going to build something big, something that would make his late father proud and give his mother the life she deserved. For the first 2 years, Denver drove that car himself. 18-hour days, sometimes 20. He'd pick up corporate executives at 5 in the morning for airport runs, drive them around all day, take them back home at midnight. Sleep 4 hours, wake up, do it all again. Every dollar he earned went back into the business. Second car, third car, first employee, then another, and another. 10 years later, Denver owned 300 luxury vehicles, employed over 400 people, and had contracts with every major corporation in Chicago and several nationwide. Annual revenue? $55 million. The kid from South Shore who'd eaten government cheese had built an empire. Denver was tall, 6'3" with deep brown skin that glowed with health, a perfectly lined beard, and dark eyes that seemed to see right through people's nonsense. Women noticed Denver. They always had. Beautiful women, successful women, women who saw his bank account before they saw his heart. But Denver had only ever truly seen one woman, Sienna Michaels. He'd met her at a charity gala 2 years ago. One of those fancy events where Chicago's wealthy gathered to feel good about themselves while writing checks. Denver had been there because his company was a sponsor. Sienna had been coordinating the event, moving through that ballroom like she owned it, graceful and confident in an emerald dress that matched her impossible green eyes. Denver had watched her handle a catering crisis with charm, fix a sound system failure in under 3 minutes, and manage 200 wealthy egos without breaking a sweat. He'd been impressed before they'd even spoken. Then she'd approached him. "You're Denver Darius," Sienna had said, offering him a champagne glass with a smile that made his heart stutter. "The transportation mogul everyone's talking about." "Mogul?" Denver had laughed, taking the glass. "That's generous. I just run a car service. A $50 million car service that's changing the game for black entrepreneurship in the Midwest," Sienna had corrected, her green eyes sparkling with something that looked like genuine admiration. "But I figured you hear that all the time. Sometimes it's nice to just be a regular guy, right?" And just like that, Denver had fallen. Not just because Sienna was beautiful. Chicago had plenty of beautiful women. But because she'd made him feel seen. Really seen. Not as a success story or a bank account, but as a person. They talked for 2 hours that night. About growing up. She was from Evanston, middle-class family, had worked her way through Northwestern. About building careers from nothing. About dreams and fears and what it meant to make it when the odds were stacked against you. "You know what I love about you?" Sienna had said toward the end of the night, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "You haven't mentioned your money once. Most successful men can't help but talk about what they have. But you talk about what you want to build. That's rare, Denver. That's special." Denver had called her 3 days later. Coffee had turned into dinner. Dinner had turned into weekend trips. Within 6 months, Denver was completely, hopelessly in love. Sienna was everything he'd ever wanted. Smart, genuinely brilliant, not playing dumb to boost his ego. Ambitious, building her event planning business with the same hunger Denver respected. Thoughtful, remembering small details about his day, asking about his mother, caring about the things that mattered to him. And God, she was affectionate, always touching him, kissing him, looking at him like he'd hung the moon and stars just for her. 10 months into their relationship, Denver had rented out the entire Art Institute of Chicago, filled it with 10,000 white roses, and hired a string quartet to play while he got down on one knee. Sienna had cried real tears. "Yes," she'd whispered, pulling him up to kiss him. "Yes, Denver. God, yes. 1,000 times yes." Their wedding 4 months later had been the event of the season. 300 guests, covered in every society page, Sienna's dress alone costing more than most people's yearly salary. Denver hadn't blinked at the cost. His wife deserved everything. The first year of marriage had been perfect. Sienna moved into his penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan. Every morning, Denver woke up to fresh coffee. 2 sugars, splash of cream, exactly how he liked it. Every evening, Sienna greeted him at the door with a kiss and genuine interest in his day. She was attentive, loving, damn near perfect. Denver's business partner, Quincy Morrison, his best friend since college, had pulled him aside 6 months after the wedding. "Man, you won the lottery with Sienna," Quincy had said, shaking his head in amazement. "Beautiful, smart, successful in her own right. And she actually loves you for you? How'd you get so lucky?" "I don't know," Denver had admitted, unable to stop smiling. "Sometimes I feel like I'm going to wake up and find out it was all a dream." If only he'd known how right he was. The accident happened 13 months into their marriage, and it happened so fast that Denver barely had time to process what was occurring. He and Sienna had been driving back from Evanston on a Wednesday afternoon. They'd gone to look at a lake house Sienna wanted for weekend getaways. Denver had been behind the wheel of his Range Rover, Sienna in the passenger seat talking about paint colors and furniture placement, when Denver saw the black sedan. It came out of nowhere, swerving across 3 lanes on Route 41 like the driver had fallen asleep at the wheel. The sedan clipped the median barrier, spun twice with a horrible screech of metal, and flipped over the embankment. "Oh my God!" Sienna screamed. But Denver was already pulling over, his heart in his throat. Through the settling dust, he could see the sedan upside down, smoke beginning to rise from its crushed hood. And then he heard it, a child's terrified screams. "Call 911. Denver told Sienna, already throwing open his door. "Denver, wait for the paramedics." But Denver was already running down that embankment, his dress shoes slipping on loose rocks and dirt. The sedan was a mangled mess of twisted metal and shattered glass. Inside, a woman hung unconscious from her seatbelt, blood running down her face. In the back, a little girl, couldn't have been more than 6, was hysterical, trapped in her car seat. "Hey, sweetheart, I got you," Denver said, trying to keep his voice calm even though his hands were shaking. "I'm gonna get you out, okay? I need you to hold very still for me." The smoke was getting thicker. Denver's eyes were watering. He could smell gasoline, strong and sharp and terrifying. His fingers fumbled with the car seat straps, mechanisms he'd never dealt with before. Above him on the road, he could hear sirens approaching. Almost there, just a little more time. The car seat buckle finally released. Denver pulled the little girl into his arms, turned toward the embankment where Sienna stood with her phone. That's when he heard it, a soft whoosh like someone lighting a gas stove. Denver looked back and saw flames beginning to lick from under the hood, spreading fast. The mother was still trapped, still unconscious, still completely helpless. He could run, could save himself and the child. The firefighters would be here in seconds. But Denver knew. Somehow, he just knew. Seconds would be too late. He scrambled back up the embankment, pressed the crying girl into Sienna's arms. "Denver, no." Sienna screamed, grabbing at his arm. "The firefighters are right there." "Don't." But Denver was already sliding back down toward the burning car, his heart pounding, his mind focused on one thing. That woman was somebody's wife, somebody's mother, somebody's daughter. He couldn't just let her burn. He managed to cut her seatbelt with a jagged piece of metal from the wreckage. Managed to drag her unconscious body halfway through the shattered driver's side window, her dead weight making his muscles scream. He was almost there, almost had her clear. Just a few more feet. The gas tank exploded with a force that lifted Denver off his feet and threw him 15 feet through the air like he weighed nothing. He didn't remember hitting the ground, didn't remember the pain. All he remembered was heat, terrible, searing heat, and then darkness. Complete, absolute darkness. When Denver woke up 4 days later in Northwestern Memorial Hospital, that darkness was still there. "Mr. Darius, can you hear me?" A male voice, calm, professional. "I'm Dr. Sullivan, your ophthalmologist. You're at Northwestern Memorial. You've been in an accident. Why can't I see?" Denver asked, his voice coming out hoarse and scratchy from the breathing tube they'd just removed. "Did someone turn off the lights? Why is everything black?" The pause that followed was one of the worst sounds Denver had ever heard. It was the sound of a doctor gathering courage to destroy someone's world. "The explosion caused severe trauma to your optic nerves," Dr. Sullivan said carefully. "The heat, the impact, the debris. Mr. Darius, you're experiencing complete bilateral vision loss." "Complete." Denver's chest tightened. "But that's temporary, right? Surgery can fix it, right?" "Right." More terrible silence. Then Sienna's voice, thick with tears. "Baby, we don't know if it's permanent," Dr. Sullivan finally said. "There's a small chance that with time and treatment, some vision might return. But Mr. Darius, I need you to be prepared for the possibility that you may never see again." The sound that came out of Denver's throat wasn't quite human. It was the sound of a man's entire world collapsing. His business. How could he run a transportation empire if he couldn't see? His life. How could he navigate a world designed for sighted people? His identity. Who was Denver Darius if he couldn't even see his own face in a mirror? "I'm here," Sienna whispered, her hand finding his, gripping tight. "Baby, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. I swear to God." Denver, we're going to get through this together. You hear me? Together. And for 23 months, Sienna kept that promise. Or at least she pretended to. During those first terrible weeks when Denver had spiraled into depression, refusing to eat, refusing physical therapy, refusing to accept his new reality, Sienna had been there. She'd sat beside his hospital bed, reading to him for hours. Mystery novels, biographies, news articles, anything to keep his mind occupied. When Denver had thrown things in rage during his rehabilitation, knocked over trays, hurled his cane across the room, shouted at nurses who were just trying to help, Sienna had calmly cleaned up the mess and told the staff he didn't mean it. When Denver had told her to leave him, to find someone whole, someone who could actually see her beauty, Sienna had gotten genuinely angry. "Don't you dare," she'd said fiercely, her voice shaking. "Don't you dare try to push me away, Denver Darius. You think I married you for your eyes? I married you for your heart, for your courage, for the man who risked his own life to save a stranger. That man doesn't need eyes to be incredible." Denver had broken down completely then, sobbing in her arms like a child. Over the following months, Sienna had reorganized their entire penthouse so Denver could navigate safely. She'd learned to cook his favorite meals when their chef wasn't available. She'd attended every single doctor's appointment, every therapy session, taking notes, asking questions, never complaining. At night, she'd lie beside him and describe the world he couldn't see anymore, painting pictures with her words. "The sunset tonight is absolutely gorgeous, baby," she'd whisper. Orange and pink and purple all swirled together like some kind of painting. And there are sailboats on the lake. 5 of them, white sails catching the last light. Oh, and there's a couple walking on the beach holding hands. They look like they're in love, kind of like us. Those moments had made Denver fall even deeper in love with her. His blindness had somehow made his heart more vulnerable, more open, more dependent on the woman who'd chosen to stay when she could have easily walked away. What Denver didn't know, couldn't know, was that Sienna's devotion was the greatest performance of her life. Now, sitting in the car with his vision restored but his sunglasses hiding that fact, Denver listened to Sienna chatter about stopping at Whole Foods for dinner ingredients, and he felt something inside him die. The romantic part of him, the part that believed in forever, the part that had trusted this woman with his whole heart. That part was gone, burned away as surely as the explosion had burned his optic nerves. What remained was something colder, sharper, something that calculated instead of felt. "You want to come up to the office with me?" Denver asked as they pulled into the Darius Transportation Building's parking garage. "I think Calloway wanted to brief me on something." "Sure," Sienna said easily, like her lover's name coming from her husband's mouth didn't bother her at all. "I could use a coffee anyway." She took Denver's arm, devoted wife routine in full effect, and guided him through the lobby, into the elevator, up to the executive floor. Denver played his part perfectly, moving with the careful uncertainty of a man who couldn't see where he was going. "My head's hurting a little," Denver said once they reached Sienna's office. "Can I sit in here for a minute?" "Of course, baby." Sienna settled him in a chair, kissed his forehead. "I'm gonna grab that coffee. You want anything?" "No, I'm good." The moment Sienna's footsteps faded down the hallway, Denver stood up. His vision was getting sharper by the hour now, colors vivid, edges crisp and clear. He looked around Sienna's office, really looked, and what he saw made rage build in his chest like a physical thing. Photos on her desk. But they weren't photos of their wedding or their honeymoon or any of the happy moments they'd supposedly shared. They were photos of Sienna and Calloway. At a beach, Calloway's arm around her waist. At a restaurant, Sienna laughing at something Calloway said. In one photo, they were kissing, not a friendly peck, but a real kiss, intimate and possessive. Denver picked up that photo, stared at his wife and his cousin, and felt his hand start to shake. That's when he heard voices in the hallway. Sienna's voice, and Calloway's. Denver quickly put the photo back, sat down, and tilted his head in that unfocused way he perfected over 23 months of actual blindness. "Told you not to come to my office when Denver's here," Sienna was saying, her voice sharp with irritation. "Relax, baby. He can't see us." Calloway's voice was smug, entitled. "Besides, I missed you." "Well, keep missing me for a few more minutes. He's right in there." Denver turned his head toward their voices. "Sienna?" "Yes, honey." Sienna's tone changed instantly. Sharp irritation replaced by warm affection. I'm back. Oh, I ran into Calloway. He wanted to say hello. Mr. Darius, Calloway said, all professional courtesy. Good to see you, sir. Hope the doctor's appointment went well. Behind his dark sunglasses, Denver looked directly at his cousin. Really looked at him for the first time in almost 2 years. Tall, light brown skin, expensive suit that Denver's company salary was probably paying for. Handsome in that easy way some men were. Family, blood, betrayer. Same as always, Denver said, keeping his voice neutral. No change. I'm sorry to hear that, sir. Calloway actually managed to sound sympathetic. The man was a good liar. But if you're feeling up to it, I'd love to brief you on the Seattle expansion. Got some contracts that need your signature. Contracts that need my signature, Denver thought. I bet you do. Actually, I'm not feeling great, Denver said. Sienna, can you take me home? We can reschedule with Calloway later this week. Of course, baby, Sienna said, already moving to take his arm. During the drive home, Sienna talked about her friend's upcoming baby shower, about wanting to redecorate the guest bedroom, about nothing important. Denver sat in the passenger seat, sunglasses on, watching her profile, and tried to remember when the lies had started. Had she ever really loved him? Or had he been a mark from the very beginning? The questions circled his mind like vultures. Back at the penthouse, Sienna helped him to their bedroom, pulled the curtains closed, kissed his forehead with what seemed like genuine tenderness. Get some rest, she said softly. I'll check on you in a bit. The moment she left and closed the door, Denver opened his eyes in the dim room. He could see everything. The bed they'd shared for almost 3 years, the photos of their wedding on the dresser, the life they'd built together. All of it built on lies. Denver walked to Sienna's nightstand and pulled open the drawer. He knew exactly what he'd find because he'd heard the rattle of pills before when Sienna thought he couldn't see her taking them. She'd always claimed they were vitamins, birth control pills. The package was almost empty. Denver checked the prescription label. The date showed it was from 3 years ago, from before their wedding. Every single time Denver had brought up having children, Sienna had said soon, honey soon. She claimed she wanted to wait until he was fully recovered, until his vision came back, until the time was right. All lies. Every word. Denver sat on the edge of their bed, those pills in his hand, and for the second time that day, he cried. But these weren't tears of joy at regaining his sight. These were tears of grief. Grief for a marriage that had never been real, for a woman who'd never actually existed, for trust that had been shattered so completely he didn't know if he'd ever be able to put it back together. When the tears finally stopped, something else took their place. Cold, calculated determination. Denver Darius hadn't built a $55 million empire by letting people take advantage of him. He'd survived 23 months of blindness through sheer will. And he damn sure wasn't going to let Sienna and Calloway steal everything he'd built. They wanted to play games? Fine. Denver would play, but he'd play to win. Now listen, if you think Denver should confront Sienna right now and end this, comment expose her. But if you think he should stay quiet and gather evidence to completely destroy them both, comment play the long game. And hey, smash that like button if you're already invested in seeing how this plays out, because trust me, what Denver's about to do will have you on the edge of your seat. That evening, Sienna made salmon for dinner. One of Denver's favorites, prepared exactly how he liked it with lemon and dill. You're so good to me, Denver said across the table, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. You're my husband, Sienna replied, reaching over to squeeze his hand. Taking care of you is what I do. For better or worse, remember? For better or worse. Denver had meant those vows. Apparently, Sienna hadn't. After dinner, Sienna claimed she needed to run back to the office for a few hours. Some reports I need to finish for tomorrow's board meeting, she'd explained, already grabbing her purse. Will you be okay here alone? She asked, that concerned wife expression on her face. I'll be fine, Denver assured her, even managing a small smile. Take your time. The moment Sienna walked out the door, Denver got to work. First, he called Quincy Morrison. Quincy picked up on the first ring. D, what's up? Everything good? Quincy, I need you to listen very carefully, Denver said, his voice steady and cold. And I need not to ask questions until I'm done talking. Okay. Quincy sounded confused but willing. My vision came back today, Denver said flatly. At the appointment this morning. I can see again, Q. Everything. Clear as day. What? D, that's incredible. That's, before you celebrate, Denver interrupted. You need to know something else. Sienna's been cheating on me with Callaway. They're planning to steal from the company and run off together. And based on what I overheard, I think they might be planning something even worse. Dead silence on the other end. Quincy, I'm here, Quincy said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. I'm just trying to process, D. Are you absolutely sure? Callaway's your cousin, man. Your family. And Sienna, she's been so good to you through all this. I heard them myself, Denver said. I saw photos. She's been playing me this whole time, Q. Maybe from the very beginning. Quincy let out a string of curses creative enough to make Denver almost smile despite everything. What do you need from me? Quincy finally asked. I need you to start monitoring every single document Callaway sent for my signature, Denver said. Every contract, every transfer, every piece of paper that crosses his desk. Don't approve anything without my direct verbal confirmation. Can you do that? Already done, Quincy said. D, I'm so sorry, man. I don't even have words. And Quincy? Not a word to anyone. As far as the world knows, I'm still blind. I want to see exactly what they're planning before I make my move. You're going to destroy them, Quincy said. It wasn't a question. In ways they can't even begin to imagine, Denver confirmed. After hanging up with Quincy, Denver called his lawyer, Brennan Lowe. Within an hour, divorce papers were being drafted, financial audits were being ordered, and the foundation for Sienna and Callaway's complete destruction was being laid. By the time Sienna came home several hours later, smelling like cologne that definitely wasn't Denver's, he was back in bed, sunglasses off, eyes closed, playing the perfect blind husband. Hey, baby, Sienna whispered, sliding into bed beside him. You awake? Barely, Denver murmured. How was work? Boring, Sienna said, settling against him like she'd done 1,000 times before. Missed you. The lie came so easily to her. So naturally. Missed you too, Denver said, adding his own lie to the collection. He felt Sienna relax against him, her breathing eventually evening out into sleep. Meanwhile, Denver lay awake, staring at the ceiling he could now see, and planned his next moves with the cold precision of a chess grandmaster. Over the following days, Denver settled into a careful routine. Wake up blind. Let Sienna guide him through breakfast, through getting dressed, through the basic activities of daily living. Go to the office and listen while pretending not to see. What he discovered made his blood boil. Callaway had been systematically stealing from the company for months, creating fake vendor accounts, approving fraudulent invoices, siphoning money in amounts small enough not to trigger immediate red flags. Over 8 months, he'd stolen almost $2 million from the business Denver had built from nothing. But apparently, $2 million wasn't enough. On the third day after Denver's vision returned, Callaway came to his office with what he called an incredible opportunity. Mr. Darius, Callaway said, settling into the chair across from Denver's desk. I've been approached by an investment group interested in buying a 40% stake in Darius Luxury Transportation. They're offering $60 million. Denver went still behind his desk. $60 million for 40%. I know it might seem low, Callaway said smoothly. But with respect, sir, since your accident, the company's valuation has taken a hit. You've had to step back from operations, and the market knows it. This offer is actually quite strong given current circumstances. Every single word was a lie. Denver knew, because he'd been quietly tracking the numbers through Quincy, that Darius Luxury Transportation was worth more now than it had ever been. A 40% stake should be valued at minimum $90 million, probably closer to $100. Who's the investment group? Denver asked carefully. Pierce Holdings, Callaway said without missing a beat. Pierce, the man's own last name. He wasn't even creative about it. I'll need to think about it, Denver said. Of course, sir, but they need an answer by Friday. These kinds of opportunities don't wait. After Callaway left, Denver immediately called Quincy. He's trying to buy my company out from under me, Denver said, using stolen money and probably fraudulent loans to do it. What do you want to do? Quincy asked. Let him think it's working, Denver said. Let's see exactly how far they're willing to go. That night, Denver did something he'd been dreading but knew was necessary. He went through Sienna's phone. She'd left it charging in the bathroom while she took a shower. Careless, but then again, she still thought her husband was blind. Denver had used her passcode, their wedding anniversary, because of course it was, and opened her messages. What he found was worse than anything he'd imagined. Sienna asterisk can't wait to be done with this. 2 years of playing devoted wife is more than enough. Callaway asterisk soon, baby. Once the company sale goes through, we're set. Got the yacht chartered for the Caymans. 2 weeks of paradise, just you and me. Sienna asterisk, what about Denver? Callaway asterisk, what about him? He'll be broke and blind. Not our problem anymore. Sienna asterisk, sometimes I almost feel bad. He's so trusting, you know? Like a puppy. Callaway asterisk, that's what makes this easy. Keep playing devoted wife for 2 more weeks. That's all we need. Sienna asterisk, fine. But you owe me the biggest vacation of my life after this. And diamonds. Lots of diamonds. Callaway asterisk, baby. We'll have 60 million to play with. You can have whatever you want. Denver had taken screenshots of everything. Every message, every photo, every piece of damning evidence, and uploaded them to his secure cloud storage. When Sienna came out of the shower 15 minutes later, wrapped in a towel and humming, Denver was sitting on the bed with his sunglasses on, looking appropriately blind. Hey, handsome, Sienna said, kissing the top of his head. Want to watch a movie? I'll describe it for you. Sure, Denver said. They settled on the couch, Sienna curled against his side, describing some romantic comedy she'd put on. Her voice was warm, affectionate, everything a loving wife should be. And Denver hated every single second of it. But he smiled when she described funny scenes, laughed at the right moments, squeezed her hand during the supposedly emotional parts, all while planning her complete and total destruction. The following week, Denver met with Claire Washington, his housekeeper, while Sienna was out at one of her event planning meetings. Claire had worked for Denver for 18 months, since before the accident. She was 35, a single mother of two, and one of the hardest workers Denver had ever employed. She was also, Denver was beginning to realize, the only person in his household who actually gave a damn about him. Claire, Denver called from his office. Can we talk for a minute? Of course, Mr. Darius. Claire appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She was a small woman with warm brown skin, natural hair pulled back in a simple bun, and kind eyes that always seemed concerned when she looked at him. Close the door and sit down, please, Denver said. Claire did, looking confused but willing. Is everything okay, sir? How long have you worked for me, Claire? 1.5 years, sir. And in that time, have I treated you fairly? More than fairly, Mr. Darius. Claire's voice was firm. When my son needed surgery and I didn't have the money, you paid for it. You didn't have to do that. You gave me a bonus that covered everything and told me to take whatever time I needed. You're a good man, sir. The best boss I've ever had. Denver nodded slowly. Claire, I need to ask you something, and I need complete honesty. Can you give me that? Always, sir. Do you think my wife loves me? The silence that followed was heavy and telling. Mr. Darius, Claire finally said carefully, that's not really my place to— Claire, please, Denver said quietly. I need the truth. Do you think Sienna loves me? Another long pause. Then, so quietly Denver almost didn't hear it. No, sir. I don't think she does. Why not? Claire took a deep breath, like she was gathering courage. Because people who love you don't do what she does when they think you can't see them. What does she do, Claire? Sir, I could lose my job. You won't, Denver promised. I give you my word. You will not lose your job for telling me the truth. Please. Claire's hands twisted the dish towel she still held. Mr. Callaway comes here when you're not home or you're locked in your office on calls. He and Mrs. Darius, they're not appropriate, sir. And the other staff, Thomas the chef, Marcus on his days off, the night security, they all know. Mrs. Darius promised them bonuses when she takes over the household fully. Those were her words. Denver's jaw tightened. What else? She talks about you like you're a burden, sir. Claire's voice was thick with emotion now. Like you're something to be managed instead of someone to be loved. Last week, I heard her on the phone saying she couldn't wait until she could gut this place and start fresh. New staff, new everything. And you never said anything, Denver said. I didn't know how, Claire admitted, tears in her voice now. I was scared she'd fire me, and I need this job for my kids. But Mr. Darius, I hated watching it. Hated watching her treat you like that when you've been so good to everyone. You deserve so much better than— Claire, Denver interrupted gently. I know about Sienna and Callaway. I know what they're planning. and I'm going to stop them, Claire. But I need time to gather evidence. Can you keep this secret? Can I trust you? Yes, sir, Claire said immediately, sitting up straighter. Absolutely yes. Whatever you need, Mr. Darius. You've been good to me and mine. That means something. Loyalty means something. Thank you, Denver said. And Claire, when this is all over, when I've dealt with everyone who betrayed me, the people who stayed loyal, people like you, are going to be rewarded. You have my word. After Claire left, Denver sat back in a chair and thought about loyalty, about trust, about the price of both. Over the next few days, Denver continued his performance while watching everything with seeing eyes. He watched Calloway come to the penthouse 4 times that week, watched through the security cameras he'd had installed when he first went blind. Cameras Sienna had thought were a good safety measure. The bedroom camera was hidden in the smoke detector. High definition, video and audio. Denver made himself watch the first time, made himself see his wife with another man in their bed, made himself record it as evidence. After that, he couldn't stomach it anymore. But the camera kept recording automatically, kept documenting every betrayal. What Denver did notice, though, was Claire, the way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't aware. The gentleness in her touch, when she helped him navigate spaces he could actually see perfectly well. A gentleness that had always existed, but he was only beginning to notice now. The anger in her eyes when Sienna was dismissive or condescending. Claire cared about him, genuinely cared, in a way that was starting to feel like more than just employee loyalty. One afternoon, when Denver was sitting in the living room, supposedly listening to an audiobook, Claire brought him tea without being asked. Chamomile, she said softly, pressing the warm cup into his hands. I know you've been stressed lately, Mr. Darius. This might help. Thank you, Claire, Denver said. You're always thinking of me. Someone should be, Claire said quietly, and there was something in her voice, something warm and sad and hopeful all at once. Denver found himself actually looking forward to Claire's presence, to her genuine kindness, her real concern, her honest care. It was such a stark contrast to Sienna's performance that it made his chest ache. But Denver wouldn't act on it, wouldn't let whatever was building between them become physical, wouldn't compromise his own integrity even though his wife had destroyed hers. He was still married, and despite everything Sienna had done, Denver would end that marriage the right way, legally, completely, before he even considered moving forward with anyone else. On Friday night, exactly 10 days after Denver's vision had returned, Sienna made her big move. They were lying in bed, lights off, Sienna curled against Denver's chest like she'd done 1,000 times before. Denver, Sienna said softly, her voice taking on that vulnerable quality she used when she wanted something. Can we talk about something? Of course. I've been thinking a lot about us. About our future. She paused for effect. Baby, I want to have a baby with you. Denver's heart clenched despite knowing it was all manipulation. You do? He asked. I do. I know I kept saying we should wait, but life's so short, you know? The accident taught me that. And I want a family with you, Denver. I want a piece of you. I want our child. The lies came so smoothly, so naturally. I'd love that, see, Denver said, playing his part. You know I would. There's just one thing that scares me, Sienna continued, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest. If something happened to you, God forbid, but after the accident, I worry. I want to make sure I can protect our child, that I can keep the business running, keep your legacy alive for our baby. And there it was, the real agenda. Your lawyer sent over those updated trust documents last week, Sienna said. The ones that name me as primary beneficiary of everything. I think we should sign them, baby, for our future child, so I can protect what you've built if anything ever happens to you. She was good, so incredibly good at this. I haven't had a chance to review them properly, Denver said carefully. I could read them to you, Sienna offered, her voice eager now. Right now if you want. And if they sound good, we could sign them tomorrow. Start fresh. Start trying for our baby with everything protected and in place. Denver let the silence stretch for a moment. Then, okay, tomorrow. We'll sign them tomorrow. He felt Sienna smile against his chest, triumphant. I love you so much, she whispered. Love you too, Denver lied. As Sienna drifted off to sleep, satisfied that she'd won, Denver lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow. Everything would come to a head tomorrow. And Sienna Michaels Darius had absolutely no idea what was coming for her. Now here's what I need from you. Comment Sienna's going down if you can't wait to see her get what's coming. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe, and keep watching because trust me when I say Denver's revenge is going to be absolutely legendary. You do not want to miss what happens when he finally takes off those sunglasses in front of everyone. It's about to get real. Saturday morning arrived with sunshine streaming through the penthouse windows, painting everything in golden light that Denver could actually see for the first time in almost 2 years. He stood in the bathroom, staring at his reflection in the mirror, really seeing himself for the first time since the accident. Same face, same eyes, but something fundamental had changed behind those eyes. Something harder, colder. The romantic fool who believed in fairy tale love was gone. What remained was a man who'd learned that trust was a weapon people could use to destroy you. Baby, you almost ready? Sienna called from the bedroom, her voice bright with false cheer. We should head to the office soon for the signing. Almost, Denver called back, putting his sunglasses on one last time. Today was the day. Today, Sienna and Calloway would learn what happened when you betrayed Denver Darius. The drive to Darius Luxury Transportation felt longer than usual. Sienna kept up her usual chatter. Something about brunch plans with her girlfriends next week, about a new restaurant she wanted to try, while Denver sat in the passenger seat, watching her profile through his dark sunglasses. She was beautiful. Even now, knowing what he knew, Denver couldn't deny that Sienna was stunning. But beauty without loyalty was just an attractive package wrapped around poison. You're quiet this morning, Sienna observed, glancing at him. Nervous about signing the documents? Just thinking, Denver said, about the future, about what comes next. It's going to be amazing, baby, Sienna said, reaching over to squeeze his hand. I promise. You, me, and eventually our baby. Everything's going to be perfect. Denver didn't respond. What could he say? That he knew she was still taking birth control? That he knew there would never be a baby because she'd been lying about wanting children from the very beginning? The silence didn't seem to bother Sienna. She was too focused on her endgame, too confident in her own performance to notice that Denver had stopped playing along in his heart. When they arrived at the Darius Transportation Building, Sienna guided Denver through the lobby with her hand on his arm, playing the devoted wife for the security guards and employees they passed. Morning, Mr. Darius. Jerome, the security guard, called. Big day today, huh? Very big day, Jerome, Denver replied, and he meant it in ways Jerome couldn't possibly understand. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt like ascending toward destiny. Denver's heart was pounding, but his mind was crystal clear. He'd spent 10 days planning this moment. Every detail was in place. Every piece of evidence was ready. Every witness was positioned. When the elevator doors opened, Quincy was waiting in the hallway. Morning, D, Quincy said, his voice carefully neutral. Morning, Sienna. Morning, Quincy, Sienna replied sweetly. Thanks for arranging everything on short notice. No problem, Quincy said, but Denver could hear the barely controlled anger in his best friend's voice. Quincy knew everything now, knew about the affair, the theft, the betrayal. And Quincy was going to enjoy watching Denver take them both down. Everyone's in the conference room, Quincy said. Whenever you're ready. Let's do this, Denver said. Sienna guided him down the hallway toward the large corner conference room. The one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Chicago. The one where Denver held major board meetings and made decisions that affected hundreds of employees. Today, it would be the stage for the greatest performance of Denver's life. When they entered, the room was full. Denver had made sure of that. His lawyer, Brennan Lowe, sat at the far end of the table with a stack of documents in front of him. The company's accountant, Felix Harrington, was there with his laptop open. The head of HR, Jasmine Cole. 3 board members. Quincy, of course, and Calloway Pierce, sitting near the middle of the table in an expensive suit, looking calm and professional and completely unaware that he was walking into a trap. Mr. Darius, Calloway said, standing as they entered. Good morning, sir. Mrs. Darius. Calloway, Denver said with a slight nod. Sienna settled Denver into the chair at the head of the table, the power position, though she probably thought she was just being helpful. She took the seat immediately to his right, her hand resting on his arm in that possessive way she'd perfected. Thank you all for coming on a Saturday, Denver said, his voice carrying across the room with the authority he'd built over 10 years of running this company. I know it's unusual, but these trust documents are important. They affect the future of this company and my family. So I wanted witnesses present. I wanted everything official. Of course, Mr. Darius, Brennan said. Shall we begin? Actually, Denver said, holding up one hand, before we start, I need to address something. Something I should have addressed 10 days ago, but I wanted to wait. I wanted to see how far things would go. The room went quiet. Sienna's hand tightened slightly on Denver's arm. Denver, she asked, confusion in her voice. What are you talking about? Denver turned his head toward her, still wearing his sunglasses. Then he spoke words that would change everything. 10 days ago, Dr. Clove performed a procedure that restored my vision. Denver said clearly, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. I've been able to see for 10 days now. Perfectly. Clearly. Everything. The gasps were immediate and loud. Sienna's hand dropped from Denver's arm like he'd burned her. What? Calloway had gone completely pale. You can see, Sienna whispered. But you said you told me nothing changed. You've been pretending. Yes, Denver said simply. I've been pretending to still be blind. Because the moment my vision returned, the first thing I saw was my wife on the phone in a parking garage, telling my cousin that I was just a meal ticket, that she was only playing devoted wife until she could take my money and disappear to the Cayman Islands. The room erupted. Board members started talking over each other. Jasmine from HR stood up, her mouth open in shock. Brennan was watching with cold professional interest. Sienna had turned white as paper. Denver, I can explain. Can you? Denver turned to face her fully. Can you explain the photos of you and Calloway in your office? Can you explain the text messages planning to steal my company? Can you explain bringing him into our home, into our bed, while I was supposedly blind and helpless? I never. Sienna was stammering now, her perfect composure cracking. Deny it all you want, Denver said coldly. I have evidence. Video, audio, text messages, financial records. Everything. He turned to look at Calloway, who looked like he was about to bolt from the room. Sit down, cousin, Denver said quietly. You're going to want to hear this. Calloway sat, but he looked like a trapped animal. Denver finally reached up and removed his sunglasses. The moment his eyes, clear, focused, seeing eyes, locked onto Sienna's face, she actually flinched. I can see you perfectly, Sienna, Denver said. I can see the guilt on your face, the fear, the realization that you've been caught. You're not quite as beautiful when you look like that. Mr. Darius, Calloway started, standing up. Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Sit down. Quincy barked from across the table. Man, you need to sit down and shut up before I forget we're in a professional setting. Calloway sat. Denver addressed the room. For those of you who don't know the full story, let me catch you up. My cousin Calloway, who I hired 8 months ago out of family loyalty, has been having an affair with my wife. They've been planning to steal this company by manipulating me into signing fraudulent sale documents. Calloway created a fake investment group called Pierce Holdings, named after himself, by the way, and tried to get me to sell 40% of my company for $60 million when it's worth nearly double that. He nodded to Felix the accountant. Felix, tell them what else you found. Felix cleared his throat, looking at Calloway with pure disgust. Over the past 8 months, Mr. Pierce has created 17 fake vendor accounts. He's been approving fraudulent invoices and siphoning money into offshore accounts. Total theft, $2.3 million. The board members started shouting. One of them actually stood up and pointed at Calloway. You stole from this company? The board member demanded. From your own family? I didn't. That's not. Calloway was sweating now. Denver, man, cousin, please. Let me explain. Don't call me cousin, Denver said, his voice like ice. You gave up that right when you decided to sleep with my wife and steal my life's work. He turned back to Sienna, who was crying now, big, beautiful tears streaming down her face. Denver, please, Sienna sobbed. I made a mistake. I was confused. I do love you, I swear I do. The affair was just a moment of weakness. We can work through this. Marriage counseling. Whatever you need. Please, baby. Please don't do this. A moment of weakness. Denver repeated. Sienna, you've been taking birth control pills since before our wedding. Every time I mentioned having children, you lied to my face. You never wanted my baby. You wanted my money. Sienna's face crumpled. She reached for Denver's hand, but he pulled away. Don't touch me, Denver said quietly. Don't ever touch me again. He nodded to Brennan, who pulled out another set of documents. Sienna Michaels Darius. Brennan said formally. You're being served with divorce papers on the grounds of cheating and fraud. Per the prenuptial agreement you signed before your marriage, you are entitled to nothing from Mr. Darius's personal assets or business holdings. However, Mr. Darius is offering a settlement of $50,000 and 6 months of health insurance as a gesture of goodwill. $50,000. Sienna's tears stopped abruptly, replaced by anger. Are you kidding me? I spent 2 years taking care of you. 2 years of my life playing nurse to a blind man. There it is, Denver said softly. The truth. You weren't taking care of me out of love. You were playing a role, waiting for your payday. I deserve more than $50,000. Sienna shouted, standing up. I deserve half. I'm your wife. You're my wife on paper, Denver corrected. But we had a prenup. You signed it without reading it because you were so eager to marry a billionaire. That prenup states that in cases of infidelity, you get nothing except what I choose to give. $50,000 is more generous than you deserve. He stood up, facing the room. And Sienna, you should probably know. I filed a police report. The district attorney is reviewing evidence of your involvement in Callaway's fraud scheme. Depending on what they find, you might be facing criminal charges as well. Sienna's face went white again. You're lying. You wouldn't watch me, Denver said. Okay, pause. If you think Sienna deserves everything she's getting right now, comment karma is real. And if you can't wait to see what happens to Callaway, comment justice for Denver. Hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed because this is just getting started. Denver turned his attention to Callaway, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Callaway Pierce, Denver said, you're fired, effective immediately. Security is waiting outside to escort you from the building. You're also being sued for embezzlement, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. And since you want to know, yes, I've filed criminal charges. The police are actually waiting downstairs to arrest you. You can't do this, Callaway said, but his voice was weak. We're family, Denver. Family doesn't steal, Denver interrupted. Family doesn't betray. You taught me that family means nothing when money's involved. So congratulations, Callaway. You're about to learn what happens when you steal from the wrong person. 2 security guards entered the room on cue. Behind them were 2 Chicago police officers. Callaway Pierce, one officer said, you're under arrest for embezzlement and fraud. You have the right to remain silent. As the officer read Callaway his rights, Callaway's professional mask finally shattered. He lunged across the table toward Denver, face twisted with rage. You self-righteous bastard. Callaway screamed as the security guards grabbed him. You think you're better than everyone. You think your money makes you special. I built this company as much as you did. I deserve that money. You deserved a paycheck, Denver said calmly while the guards restrained Callaway. What you got? What you didn't deserve was my trust. And you definitely didn't deserve my wife, but apparently, you two are perfect for each other. As the police handcuffed Callaway and let him out, still screaming about injustice and family betrayal, Sienna stood frozen by the table, tears streaming down her face. This can't be happening, she whispered. This can't be real. It's very real, Denver said. He turned to address the board members and staff still in the room. I apologize for the drama, but I needed witnesses for what comes next. This company will continue to operate exactly as before. Quincy Morrison will be taking over as Chief Operating Officer. I'll be resuming my full duties as CEO now that my vision has returned. Anyone found to have been involved in Callaway's schemes will be terminated and prosecuted. Are we clear? Everyone nodded, still looking shell-shocked. Good. This meeting is adjourned. As people filed out, some stopping to shake Denver's hand and congratulate him, others just wanting to escape the tension, Sienna remained standing by the table. When the room finally emptied except for Denver, Sienna, Quincy, and Brennan, Sienna finally spoke. I really did love you once, she said quietly. At the beginning, when we first met, that wasn't fake. Denver studied her face, looking for truth in her eyes. Maybe, he said finally, or maybe you're just a really good liar. Either way, It doesn't matter anymore. Sign the divorce papers, Sienna. Take the settlement and get out of my life. Where am I supposed to go? Sienna asked, and for the first time, she sounded genuinely lost. I don't have any money. I don't have anywhere to stay. Denver, please, you have $50,000 coming, Denver said. That's more than most people have when they start over. You're educated. You had an event planning business before we met. Rebuild it. Or don't. Frankly, I don't care what you do as long as you do it away from me. Sienna looked at Quincy, then at Brennan, like one of them might help her. Neither moved. You're really going to leave me with nothing? Sienna asked Denver. After everything, Denver's voice rose for the first time. You plan to take everything from me, Sienna. You talked about my death like it was a business transaction. You brought another man into our bed while I was blind and helpless. You lied about wanting children. You lied about loving me. So yes, I'm leaving you with nothing except what that prenup legally requires. And you should be grateful I'm giving you even that. Sienna's face hardened then. The tears stopped. The vulnerability disappeared. You're going to regret this, she said coldly. I'll fight the prenup. I'll drag your name through every newspaper in Chicago. I'll tell everyone. Tell them what? Denver interrupted. Tell them you cheated on your blind husband? Tell them you helped steal from his company? Tell them you planned to defraud him? Please, Sienna, go to the papers. I have video evidence of everything. You look even worse than you already do. Sienna stared at him for a long moment. Then she grabbed her purse from the table and walked toward the door. At the doorway, she paused and looked back. I hope you end up alone, Denver, she said viciously. I hope you never trust anyone again. I hope every woman you meet reminds you of me and what I did to you. As she walked out, Quincy let out a long breath. Man, I really wanted to hit her. Like really wanted to. Get in line, Denver said, sinking back into his chair. The adrenaline that had carried him through the confrontation was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. You okay, D? Quincy asked, putting a hand on his friend's shoulder. No, Denver admitted, but I will be. Eventually. Brennan started packing up his documents. I'll file these divorce papers on Monday. Given the evidence and the prenup, this should be finalized within 60 days. Sienna can fight it if she wants, but she'll just waste money on lawyers. The prenup is airtight. Good, Denver said. What about Calloway? He's looking at 5 to 10 years for the embezzlement alone, Brennan said. More if the DA adds fraud charges. The evidence you gathered is damning. After Brennan left, Denver and Quincy sat in the conference room alone, looking out at Chicago's skyline. I can't believe they actually thought they'd get away with it, Quincy said. Like you weren't going to eventually figure it out. I was blind, Q, Denver said quietly. They thought they had all the time in the world. And if my vision hadn't come back. He trailed off, not wanting to finish that thought. But it did come back, Quincy said firmly. And you handled it perfectly. You didn't just react emotionally. You planned. You gathered evidence. You protected yourself and the company. Your pops will be proud, D. Denver smiled slightly at the mention of his late father. Yeah, maybe. What now? Quincy asked. Now. Denver stood up, looking out at the city he'd conquered once and would conquer again. Now I rebuild. The company's solid. We'll recover what Calloway stole. My personal life is, well, it's a mess. But I'll figure it out. You know you're not going to be alone, right? Quincy said, you've got people who actually care about you. Me, your mom, Claire. At the mention of Claire, Denver felt something shift in his chest. Claire's been amazing through all this. Claire's been in love with you for months, man, Quincy said bluntly. Everyone can see it except you. She works for me, Denver protested. So, you're about to be divorced. And she's not married. And she's actually good to you, like genuinely good. Not performing. Not faking as much as I can see. Quincy stood up. I'm not saying you need to rush into anything. God knows you need time to heal. But when you're ready, don't let what Sienna did stop you from seeing what's right in front of you. The following week moved quickly. Calloway was formally charged with embezzlement and fraud. His bail was set at $500,000. Money he didn't have since Denver had frozen all the accounts containing stolen funds. Sienna signed the divorce papers without fighting, probably because her lawyer told her she'd lose. She moved out of the penthouse while Denver was at work, taking only her personal belongings. Denver had the locks changed that same day. Claire had been there when he came home to an emptier penthouse. Mr. Darius, she'd said softly, finding him standing in the bedroom doorway, looking at the space where Sienna's things used to be. I cleared out the guest room, if you'd rather sleep there for a while. Sometimes a fresh start helps. Thank you, Claire, Denver had said. That's thoughtful. And sir, Claire had hesitated. I know it's not my place, but you did the right thing. I know it doesn't feel good right now, but you protected yourself. That takes strength. Denver had turned to look at her then. Really look at her. Claire was pretty in a natural, unadorned way that was so different from Sienna's polished beauty. Warm brown skin, natural hair, kind eyes that never looked at him like he was a dollar sign. Claire, Denver had said, I need to ask you something. Of course, sir. Do you have feelings for me? Real feelings, not just employee loyalty. Claire had gone still. Then slowly she nodded. Yes, sir. I do. I have for a while now. But Mr. Darius, I would never. I mean, you were married, and I'm just the housekeeper, and you're not just anything, Denver had interrupted gently. You're the only person who showed me genuine kindness when I was at my lowest. You're loyal, honest, and good. And Claire, I think I might have feelings for you too. Claire's eyes had widened. You do. I do, Denver had admitted. But I need time. I need to heal from all this. I need to learn how to trust again. Can you be patient with me? I can be patient, Claire had said softly. I've been patient this long, haven't I? Denver had smiled, his first real smile in weeks. Yes, you have. He wanted to kiss her then, want to pull her close and feel something real and good and honest. But he didn't, because even though Sienna had destroyed their marriage, Denver was still technically married until those divorce papers were finalized. And Denver Darius might be many things, but he wasn't going to become the kind of man who compromised his integrity, even for someone as genuine as Claire. So instead, he'd just taken her hand and squeezed it gently. Thank you, he'd said, for everything. Always, Mr. Darius, Claire had replied. Denver, he corrected. You can call me Denver. Claire had smiled then, a beautiful, genuine smile. Denver. If you're rooting for Denver and Claire, comment Claire is the one. And if you think Denver deserves genuine love after everything he's been through, smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe because we're almost to the end, and you need to see how this story wraps up. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of legal proceedings, business restructuring, and personal healing. Calloway's trial moved forward. The evidence was overwhelming: video footage, bank records, testimony from the accountant. His public defender tried to negotiate a plea deal, but Denver refused to agree to anything less than the maximum sentence. He stole from me, Denver told Brennan. He stole from my employees. He betrayed family. I want him to face full consequences. Calloway eventually pleaded guilty to avoid trial. The judge sentenced him to 8 years in federal prison. When Denver heard the sentence, he felt nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just emptiness where his trust and family used to be. Sienna, meanwhile, had apparently tried to reconcile with Calloway before his sentencing, but Calloway had rejected her, blaming her for everything. With nowhere else to go and no money, Sienna had moved back in with her parents in Evanston. Denver heard through mutual acquaintances that she was trying to rebuild her event planning business, but her reputation had taken a massive hit. No one wanted to hire the woman who betrayed Denver Darius. Denver felt a small pang of sympathy, very small, but mostly he just felt relieved that she was out of his life. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning, exactly 60 days after Denver had filed the papers. Brennan called him at the office with the news. It's done, Brennan said. You're officially a free man, Denver. Denver had hung up the phone and sat at his desk for a long time, processing the end of what he'd thought would be a forever marriage. 3 years. He'd known Sienna for 3 years, been married for almost 2 of them, and all of it had been based on lies. But as he sat there, Denver realized something important. Sienna's betrayal had taught him what real love wasn't. Now he needed to learn what real love actually was. That evening, Denver came home to find Claire in the kitchen, making dinner. She'd been doing that more often lately, staying late, cooking meals, making sure Denver actually ate instead of just working himself to exhaustion. Smells amazing, Denver said, walking into the kitchen. What are you making? Your mother's recipe for short ribs, Claire said, smiling at him over her shoulder. She gave it to me 2 weeks ago when she visited. Said you needed some home cooking. Denver's mother had visited several times since the divorce, worried about her son. She'd met Claire during one of those visits and had pulled Denver aside afterward. That woman loves you, his mother had said bluntly. Really loves you. When are you going to stop being stubborn and see what's right in front of you? I'm not being stubborn, Ma, Denver had protested. I'm being careful. There's a difference between careful and afraid, his mother had replied. Don't let that woman's lies make you miss out on something real. Now, watching Claire move around his kitchen with comfortable familiarity, Denver made a decision. Claire, he said, the divorce was finalized today. Claire turned to face him, wooden spoon in hand. Oh, how do you feel about that? Relieved, Denver admitted. And ready. Ready for what? Denver crossed the kitchen until he was standing right in front of her. Ready to move forward. Ready to try again with someone real. Claire's breath caught. Denver, I know you work for me, Denver said quickly. And if that's an issue, I can hire a new housekeeper. I don't want you to feel pressured or uncomfortable. But Claire, I need you to know I have feelings for you. Real feelings. And if you're willing to take a chance on a man who's probably got more trust issues